Welcome back, everyone, to BallyDung Wrestling 24/7. I am Ravishing Ron, and this next matchup is for the BallyDung Championship. As here we see Triple H, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. He's going to be the special guest referee for this upcoming matchup. And this matchup, I'm surprised that we are actually going to see, because originally it was thought that the board of directors had taken away the title shot for the challenger in this matchup, but I guess the board decided that to avoid any kind of litigation or certain issues arising or a dispute, that they ought to give the competitor a title opportunity so that they can't say that they were contractually obligated and didn't get their contract fulfilled, breach of contract stuff. So the board just decided, you know what, it's the holiday season, give this person an opportunity, make sure that they can't do anything about it afterwards. So this matchup is going to be an interesting one, as the Mad Professor will put the title on the line against the world's strongest man, Mark Henry. And Mark Henry, of course, won that Black Friday Battle Royal. A huge, huge Battle Royal it was. And Mark Henry earned the title opportunity, but then he had some issues with Claire. He refused to do Claire's bidding. Claire wanted Mark Henry to do some things with Ryback, and Mark Henry said no. He didn't want to fool around while with Kempo Kitty. But Kempo Kitty and Mark Henry, I don't know what their whole relationship is, how that's all going, but nonetheless, Mark Henry kind of cost himself, because he's already had to face Big Papa Pump, and he lost that matchup, but he still gets to keep his title opportunity, as he and the Mad Professor will go one-on-one in this matchup. And the Mad Professor, I gotta give him credit. He has been a great champion for BallyDung Wrestling for quite a while, putting the title belt on the line night in, night out, trying to be a fighting champion. He's defeated a lot of competitors, and he was really taken to the limit at Cornucopia Punishment when he and the One went head-to-head, champion versus champion, title for title. But unfortunately for the Mad Professor, he and the One went to a draw, and in the Iron Man matchup that was signed, there was no sudden death overtime, there was no tie-breaking procedure. But after the matchup, the One and the Mad Professor shook hands and showed a little bit of sportsmanship towards each other, and neither of them, though, is too pleased with the way that they weren't able to walk out with both championships on that night. But I mean, some people think that they should have been given 5 more minutes, or at least a way to finish off things. But hey, much like the NFL, a match can end in a tie, and there's nothing that can be done about that, at least in an Iron Man matchup where anything can happen. And the match was signed, but there was no sudden death. So both the One and the Mad Professor both walked out of Cornucopia Punishment 2 with their respective titles intact, and there was no guarantee that anybody would walk out with 2 championships or a double champion would be crowned. But I mean, that's the risk that you take, I guess, sometimes when you book a matchup of that proportion. And speaking of matches and titles, the One thought that he was real smart trying to cost me the championship belt. But you know what, One? I might have lost the US UK title belt, but I've got my light heavyweight championship all polished up and shining real nice here in the booth with me. And it looks like Mark Henry, he's got the Mad Professor up, and oh, the world's strongest slam, cover 1, no, and a kick out by the Mad Professor. Mark Henry starting off strong, trying to make the most of this matchup, but the Mad Professor now starting to come back, trying to find something. Oh, and Mark Henry with a takedown there of the Mad Professor. The Mad Professor, he's got to, I think, going to have to dig down deep, but he is just getting stomped on by Mark Henry, who's not taking this matchup lightly. Mark Henry, around this holiday season, would love to be a champion, I think, of BallyDung Wrestling, because that would be just another world title that he can add to his resume. He's been a World Heavyweight Champion. He's been an ECW Champion. And imagine if he could add BallyDung Champion to that list of accomplishments. That would be huge for him. And we're at this little bit of a festive arena here tonight. But Mark Henry, I guess, because of getting this matchup on a special 24/7, a festive edition of 24/7, he won't be the number one contender at Naughty or Nice 3. I'm not sure if the Mad Professor will get that night off. And right through that barricade busted down by Mark Henry, who has just been assaulting the Mad Professor. The Mad Professor has not found an answer yet to Mark Henry, and Mark Henry is just really unleashing everything he's got on the Mad Professor to try to get that BallyDung Championship. And the Mad Professor, we've seen him in trouble before, and looks like he's in trouble again. And his head slammed right up against that steel ring post. And Mark Henry, he is just not letting up. He is not giving up in this matchup, not letting up an inch. And the Mad Professor, I don't know what the Mad Professor can do. And Mark Henry from off the top rope, but the board of directors decided to make this matchup official, so whatever happens, I guess happens. But Mark Henry, when he won that Battle Royal, I was surprised by some of the competitors that he beat. I mean, I believe he threw out Ghost Lurker, and Ghost Lurker is a legend, the heel legend. And Mark Henry, I guess, now that he's got the cover, hooks the leg, 1, 2, and no. We almost had a new BallyDung champion there. The Mad Professor's run looks like it might be in jeopardy. And Mark Henry takes him down again with... now we're going to see a splash by Mark Henry on the Mad Professor. And no. Another splash by Mark Henry. And a third. 3 in a row. And now a cover, 1, 2, no. And the Mad Professor wisely getting that shoulder up just barely. But his ribs and chest have got to be screaming in agony. He cannot be feeling too good after taking those 3 splashes in a row from the world's strongest man, Mark Henry. And when you have all that weight crashing down onto your body, and now the Mad Professor is going to try to go high risk here. I think he might have to take flight in this matchup because of the way that this match has just been going for him. It has not been an easy matchup, to say the least. And there we see that special table that the board of directors has set up, and Mark Henry has that BallyDung Championship in his hand, but that's not his title. That is not his title yet, but it could very well be his championship, possibly at the end of this matchup if things keep going his way like this. The Mad Professor has just not found an answer against the world's strongest man. And now Mark Henry hit the Mad Professor in the chest, and now DDTs him headfirst onto that steel chair, and now boot to the face. He's busted open. I think the Mad Professor is starting to bleed, and we're seeing that blood coming out of the Mad Professor's face, and he is just having a rough outing of it. And Mark Henry, he's going to go for the Gorilla Press Slam, and he nails the Mad Professor with that, and now looks like Mark Henry's going for the announce table, but the Mad Professor in a prone position. I don't know what more the and off the table onto the Mad Professor. And the Mad Professor, he's got to be hurting. He's got to be wondering what he's got to do in this matchup to come back. But he's trying to hold that forehead of his that's bleeding badly as he delivers that leg sweep to Mark Henry. But the Mad Professor really slow to try to capitalize on that. I mean, he didn't have the time to do anything because of all that pain he's taken in this matchup. And now he's got Mark Henry. He's going to set him up. He sends Mark Henry right through that table. And Mark Henry and the Mad Professor going all out for the BallyDung Championship. And that is a major championship, and we've seen competitors risk it all for that championship. And the Mad Professor with a cover hooks the leg, 1, no, and a kick out there. A very, very slow count by Hunter Hearst Helmsley in this matchup. I'm not sure if he's just trying to be biased or what his deal is, but nonetheless, I think the Mad Professor clearly had a big opportunity, and now, he tackles, spears Mark Henry through that barricade. That barricade just broke down, and now they're in the crowd fighting amongst the fans. And what a crazy, insane matchup this is. And I think we would have seen this at Naughty or Nice 3, but I'm trying to figure out now who's going to be the next number one contender now that Mark Henry is getting his shot here. And will Mark Henry go into Naughty or Nice 3 as the new BallyDung champion? I mean, because it seems like he's in a pretty good position to do that, but the Mad Professor starting to come back. And the Mad Professor sends Mark Henry back into the ring. An elbow to the face. The Mad Professor, he's been a great champion, though. Nonetheless, regardless of what happens, as he takes Mark Henry down, and now a stomp to the chest and a kick to the face. The Mad Professor he's going to have to turn up this aggressiveness. He's going to have to get a mean streak about him, I think, if he wants to win this matchup, though. But he is starting to come back as now he goes for a hero slam. Some people have called it the angle slam, but I guess the Mad Professor calls that the hero slam. And the Mad Professor would love to have that title belt to continue to be champion around the holiday season with everything coming up, and he would probably love to close out this year as BallyDung champion as he delivers a running power slam and a cover, hooks the leg, and a kick out by Mark Henry yet again. Mark Henry, and the Mad Professor takes him down yet again, and the Mad Professor is trying to do whatever it takes. And now a cover again, hooks the leg, and a kick out, but the referee didn't even count to 2 there. Hunter Hearst Helmsley is a little bit questionable. And Mark Henry clotheslines Triple H down. And now the Mad Professor from off the top rope with a crossbody block. 1, 2, and 3. The Mad Professor pulls off the victory, retains the BallyDung Championship with that top rope maneuver. And what a surprising turn of events that was. Mark Henry looked like he was getting frustrated, tried to knock out Hunter Hearst Helmsley to stop any kind of attempt at a count for a pinfall, but nonetheless, the Mad Professor pulls it out yet again, as he's been doing quite a number of times during his title reign. And you got to ask the question, what's it going to take to defeat the Mad Professor now that he's been on this great run as BallyDung champion? And for the Mad Professor, he continues to have that target on his back of being the BallyDung champion, but nonetheless, he pulls off a victory here tonight, and Mark Henry comes up short, but congratulations to the Mad Professor on a huge, impressive